Spark TV.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and my wine to have a chat about all things business.
Yes, so good. And I'm excited because you brought wine because not everybody does anymore. I've got an equal opportunity for everybody. So I'm always so excited when people bring a glass of wine. It's a good excuse for me to me to have one.
Well,
Um,
it's that time of the day for me anyway. So the Malbec comes out and I sit at the desk and off we go.
I love it. I love it. No, and it's funny because when I ran off to get one, I just picked one out of the little wine rack that we have. And I was like, I hope this isn't too fancy. I was like, I'm just going to take it and we'll deal with that later. I have no idea. Amazing. Let's tell everybody who you are and what you do.
So my name is Clarke. I am the founder of a brand called Bondi Blades. We started back in COVID. We were Australia's first at-home sustainable derma razor. And I'm also co-founder of another company called Bondi Beauty Distribution, which has come about from the Bondi Blades.
So cool. Okay, talk to me. What does it actually do? So for anyone who's unfamiliar with it, what does the product actually do?
So a dermaplaning tool is a little facial razor for women. Oh, men can use it too as well, tidy up their eyebrows or their beard line. And it's basically shaving your face. It gently removes the peach fuzz and dead skin from your face, which means that your products will then penetrate the skin better and your makeup will sit a lot more flawlessly. If you don't remove the peach fuzz from your face, you get that cakey look because, you've got the fine little hairs. The makeup sits on top of the hairs and it just doesn't give you that polished gloss finish look. And despite what people say, it does not grow back thicker or darker, removing your facial hair. It's very different on your face. The hair that we're removing is called vellus hair. It's a very fine hair. And the worst thing that can happen is it will just grow back the same as it was.
So you mentioned that this grew or came about as of during COVID. Was that a result of not being able to go out to, say, a salon and get this done? Is that where the kind of idea sparked from?
Yeah, it actually was. I was about to have my daughter. And I was already going to a salon having dermaplaning every fortnight. And I was like, oh, this is an amazing experience, but it's only, it's 15 minutes. It's costing me $150. And while my skin feels great, the lady's just shaving my face and putting some nice music on while I relax for 15 minutes. I'm about to have a child. I'm not going to have time or the extra $150 a fortnight to spare to go and get this done. I need to find something to do this at home. And there just wasn't anything I could find at that point in time in the market. And then lockdown happened. So it was right product, right time, because obviously the idea dropped. And that's how it came about, really.
Wow, that's so cool. I love it. It's so many businesses are a result of, oh my God, I have this problem. Why hasn't anybody solved this? And somebody that's excited and motivated enough to actually see it through. So obviously having the idea, having the problem, experiencing the pain was one thing, and it being the right time is the next. But then how did you actually go? Because I can also imagine that through COVID, getting a product developed would have been really challenging. So what did that process look like for you?
To be honest, it was actually quite easy. I
Ooh,
got
tell me.
samples. I saw samples from a few different manufacturers and got them shipped over and tried and tested them all.
Yeah.
And initially I went with a 3-pack that was a plastic option because they were cute colors, they looked good, good price, and the MOQ wasn't as high. But I still had the idea that I wanted to then step up to the sustainable product. So I did have samples of this as well. It's just the MOQ was a lot higher. So I thought, let me test the waters first before I go all out and order 10,000 packets of a product in case it doesn't sell.
Fair. That's a great strategy.
I got the samples and I started using them, giving them to my friends and family to try. And I just started it was also when TikTok started to appear.
Yeah.
I started documenting myself testing these products and talking about what I was doing. And it just kind of all took off from there.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Because I can imagine too, there is a bit of an education process of showing people how to use it, letting them know it's okay, introducing people who maybe haven't even heard of it before.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to spend a lot of time educating customers on how to shave their face at home. So I make lots of tutorials. I spent a lot of time on TikTok live, shaving my face.
Oh, really?
People, yes.
That's
And people
awesome. I love it.
just to show them that, it's not a scary thing. Yes, you're taking a razor to your face, but if you do it correctly, you're not going to cut your skin or anything like that. And it's a really easy process to do at home.
Oh, that's so cool. So do you think TikTok has been like one of your biggest sales and marketing channels?
It was for sure. And TikTok's a really interesting platform because my personal TikTok as a founder has done so much better at promoting the business than the actual brand TikTok itself.
Ah, that is interesting.
Because I found people were buying into my story and following along that journey that I was sharing, my ups and downs, the good things, the challenges I had in business. I was very much an open book. And doing that, it sort of helped grow the business that way.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a really interesting thing about, I think, the time we live in now. I almost think you have to be a bit of a personal brand to grow any brand. Would
Yeah.
you agree with that?
Look at the Kardashians as an example. Kim Kardashian has what 200 million followers as an individual, but her brands don't have anywhere near that because people
Yeah.
might buy the product for the brand, but they follow her story and her journey. So, and
Mm.
you see that with a lot of female founder brands. People are investing in the brand because they follow that founder's personal journey as opposed to the business itself, and they're more invested because that female founder has come out and started sharing all their behind the scenes experiences.
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who don't want to be in the spotlight and really struggle to show up, but I think that the people that do just take off so much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree. I've seen brands, and even in my consulting that my husband and I do, we've found the founders that don't want to be the face of brand as much as we educate and coach them to do that are never as successful as the ones that become face of brand and share their behind the scenes stuff, because there's people want a personal connection to a brand these days. They're moving away from big faceless companies to wanting to support small businesses, entrepreneurs, startups. And if you're a startup, but you're not prepared to share that behind the scenes type stuff, it's 10 times harder to grow that brand. You could have the most amazing product, but if you're not prepared to put in the hard yards at the start and get out there and be the face of it and talk about it and share it, it's very challenging.
Yeah, it really is. And I think you're spot on with saying that, people buy from people, people want to know that behind the scenes story. Yeah, it's just, I think we are becoming more conscious, like as a consumer, we don't want to just go to Woolies and chuck anything in our trolley and not think about it anymore. We do actually want to support people who are giving it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. I would so agree with that.
So you mentioned your consulting business. What's that? What's that all about? Or is it
So we've been doing consulting for about 18 months. And how we came to founder that business was my husband seen I was spending a lot of time helping other people. People were always messaging my TikTok wanting, how do you get into retail, that sort of stuff. And he said, we need to monetize this. Let's start a business that focuses on distribution and consulting. And the two components of that business we have are a founder will come to us that has an idea but doesn't even know where to start, whether it's from sourcing the manufacturer to packaging design and things like that, to brands that are in the e-commerce space but want to get to that next level of retail. And what my husband does is he's fantastic at negotiation and sales, whereas I'm the artistic creative one. So I help with the brands with their getting marketing, PR, packaging, that sort of stuff. And then he has this network of like over 400 people that we've
Wow.
connected with through Bondi Blades that he can then introduce them to for distribution opportunities, whether it's a retailer, distributor, wholesaler, things like that. And he knows how to negotiate those contracts and have those, I call them crucial conversations.
Mm.
And that's his field of expertise. So we work with brands to get them into retail. And we actually had a really recent exciting story. We're only working with a brand 3 months. And just last week, they've shipped off their first lot of stock to the USA, and it was like 30,000 USD. And it's an
Oh,
brand.
wow.
In Australia, it's a pretty much unknown brand. But one of our connections in America seen the value in the brand and what we're doing with it. And yeah, that's really exciting. So without our help, they would never have got that order because they wouldn't have had the connections or know what was needed to facilitate that. and what sort of marketing would need to be in place, finessing the packaging, the social media, all that sort of stuff that buyers and retailers are looking for. And with the consulting, what took us, 3 to 4 years to build, we can get at, say, an existing brand within 3 months, we can get them in an online retailer, 3 to 6 months physical stores, 12 months international. Like, it's a lot quicker process because we know what they're looking for, we know what they want, and we've got those connections. And where we have built those relationships, those buyers trust us and distributors, and they know that we're not going to present them a brand if ourselves don't believe in it, because they're so busy, they get so many presentations every day that's very consuming, that we're only going to present them something that we know will sell.
Oh my God, this is awesome. And it's so interesting. It's almost another great thing about starting a business right now. There are so many people like you and your, was it husband? Yes, husband, supporting other people. There's never been a better time to launch a business or scale a business, because there are so many people who are actually willing to help.
Yeah, exactly. And we only really advertise through, I guess, word of mouth. Like, we get referrals from other business owners, or we do have a bit of social media and do some ads, but we've been very fortunate that we get lots of referrals because people have been happy with the service we've given them.
Yes.
And they refer other people to us.
Yeah, that is so cool. I mean, so on that topic of business growth, and you mentioned TikTok as one of the primary channels. What else did you do to grow Bondi Blades to where it is today?
So in COVID, I spent a fortune on influencer marketing. I think it was $50,000 or $60,000 in the first year.
Wow. Oh my God.
Influencer marketing at that time was huge, but your return on investment was massive. Like, there was a few that, you had to pay that didn't get the results you would have expected, but 99% of the time, I would say the influencers I invested in, because I chose them very well.
Yep.
Within about 5 minutes of going live, I would have got the feedback I'd paid for them.
Wow.
The rest of the sales were just profit. It was such a critical marketing tool to use, the influencer marketing. But I think now the landscape has changed a lot. And what did work back then is not working as well now. So you've got to pivot, and you've got to look at different things, like more your UGCs and your customer reviews, your ads, and also PR. PR is massive, especially if you want to take your brand into retail. If I Google your brand and there's no presence, if I hit, Bondi Blades and hit news and there's no PR, in a sea of products, a buyer's going to think, well, what is this brand? They haven't invested in PR and marketing. People need to know about the brand, and PR builds that credibility, helps with build your SEO as well. And it just makes such a big presence when you go to present a brand, that sort of strategic PR and marketing behind it.
Yeah, because so big retailers want that. They almost want to know that you're already doing the work to sell the product before it hits their shelves. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for example, in grocery, if you come in as a new brand, you've only got 13 weeks to prove yourself. So even after 12 months of negotiations and getting your stock ready to get it into the distribution center, Woolworths, for example, get it into the Woolies, once it's on shelf, there's a 13-week period of review. If you're not hitting the sales numbers, your item's deleted and in clearance straight away. So getting in there is only half the battle, then you've got to keep it. So the retailer is going to ask you, what are you going to do to support your brand sell-through? Obviously, you're selling it to them at quite a discount, so there is some marketing expectation that they're going to contribute, but also as a brand, you need to contribute marketing expenses, whether it's the PR, co-op, lots of things like that, to incentivize the retailer to push your brand.
Wow.
Put it on the shelf and think it's going to sell you. And someone who is exceptional at this retail is actually a founder. I really admire her name. Is Iris. She started the Quick Flick.
Oh yes, I follow her on Instagram. It's so awesome.
Her and her team are in Coles, constantly filming content and driving customers to that store, and that's what the retailers love to see.
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, and again, it's such founder-led marketing, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Totally different landscape to what it used to be.
Do you find that with PR as well? So you mentioned that was a really key driver. Do you think that a lot of that PR is around the founder as well, or is it a bit of mix of the product and
Yeah, I found the best results from PR I got was Tess got me into like a couple of Daily Mail articles as an example.
nice. Yeah.
The first one that happened, I didn't even realize it had gone live until I was out for dinner with some girlfriends. And this was on a Saturday night, about 7:30, 8 o'clock. It was still after, I was only after the first 12 months of my business running. And we were sitting at the dinner table, and all of a sudden the Shopify ching started to go crazy on my phone. Everyone's looking at me and I'm like, what's going on? And then I checked my phone, and the Daily Mail article had gone live about my story about, you know, being a working mum starting this business. And it just drove thousands of people to my store that wanted to support it. And there was all these lovely comments in the checkout saying, oh, I love your brand. I've followed you on TikTok. I love to support you. I'm so happy you've got this article. Like, people seen it and wanted to support.
Yeah.
Just that, sharing that story was just profound for the business. And then off that, we kept getting more inquiries for interviews and stories, because people, and as well, they love to hear that story where you've started a business with no business experience, you're a working mum, all those things that people really resonate with. And it was really inspiring for a lot of people as well too.
I think it's awesome, because I think that if sometimes we think, as a person wanting to start a business, we think that they're all drawbacks, like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not qualified. I don't have this. I don't have this. But like, people that are in that position and have a go anyway, like, people want to support them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I had no idea how to even start a Shopify. So I watched a tutorial on how to open a Shopify store.
Yeah.
How to print labels. Like, I had to get my friend Mia to help me set up my post business, because I had no idea how to print labels out. I was handwriting labels in the beginning because I didn't know that you could get this app that integrated to your store that you could generate the labels and print them, and then you'd be printing streams of them and just things like that. Like, you just learn on the go, and talking to other people in the same or similar industry, and just networking with people, you can bounce ideas off them and share tips and tricks. And it's almost like in COVID as well, there was this small business community on TikTok, and everyone would be sharing their tips and tricks and supporting each other. And it was a really good time to start a business and just learn a lot from other people.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting comment around, like, you said it before, around, what works in some periods doesn't always work. So you have to adapt and change. And I think, you're right. During COVID, there was like this perfect storm of things. And we saw a lot of, some businesses not do so well, but a lot of new brands emerge that really, connected with people, really like founder-led marketing, consumer-led marketing, influencers. But yeah, the landscape's kind of changed now. But I love what you said. You've just got to adapt and figure out what works now, because I think that will always happen. We'll always go through these seasons where, who knows what's going to happen in 2025. What's the world doing? What's the economy doing? What's the state of whatever? There might even be a new social media platform that comes out. We seem to have a new social platform every few years. So it's like, you never know. I think you have to, as a business owner, just keep adapting and changing and having that like continuous learning and optimizing kind of mindset.
Absolutely. I would totally agree. And, you've always got to be open to, change and new ideas, and open to suggestions and taking on feedback, good and bad. And just, planning for that next stage, because who knows what's going to happen, like you said.
Yeah. What has been the biggest challenge you've experienced so far in business?
For me, the biggest challenge definitely would be, especially in the early stages when we first started dealing with distributors, was having those conversations, because it's interesting that it's pretty much male dominated field at the sales type level.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know how to have those conversations. I would be very, I don't like confrontation. And
Me either.
being so personally invested, I couldn't take the emotion out of it and separate my personal feelings from business. I'd make decisions based on my emotions, which was not good for the business at times. And that's when my husband stepped in and said, let me come in and help you. And it was the best thing, to be honest, because then I could just let him take over those things that I wasn't confident at doing and comfortable, and he got me steered back in the right direction because he could have those conversations, and I could then just focus on what I'm really good at, which is the creativity side and the marketing and branding, and leave all the hard stuff to him.
I love it. It sounds like such a great partnership. You know, I know sometimes going into business with a family member or a husband or a partner or a whatever can be challenging because it's like new levels of conversation that people might not have had before. But I think when it works and you have complementary skills, it can just be so powerful because you've suddenly put two people who are just so invested in this working together.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's like CEO role, I guess you would
Yeah.
say, and I'm the marketing person, and it just works well. But there at times, especially when we were negotiating, when we started to expand really quickly, it does sometimes feel like you're living, breathing the business 24/7. There's no escape from it. You live together, you're working together, and you're raising a child as well. And it is really challenging, but it can also be very rewarding as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's look, I love it. I love to hear it because I feel like at the moment there's a little bit of there's a little trend going on Instagram at the moment around bagging guys out a little bit in male dominated fields, and I'm like,
Yeah,
you know
I
what,
see that, and I'm like, what is that about?
I know. And it really bothers me because I'm like, I wouldn't be where I am in business without my husband's support. Like I've had great support from it. Don't get me wrong. I've experienced all the crap over the years. Like we raised capital for Scrunch and all that, and I got all the stupid comments, but I'm like, but on the whole, guys are fucking great, and they're so supportive of our dreams.
Of course they are.
It made me laugh actually. We were in Perth a couple of weekends ago and they were setting up this market stall down on the water, and I walked past and this girl was setting up her stand, and it was like candles or something. And there was a guy, there's obviously a partner, was there unpacking boxes. And I was like, that's what I like to see. She's got a crazy dream. And he's like, yes, I'll go to the markets with you and unpack. I'm
Oh,
like,
that's the
it's
best.
so cool.
That's
I
so
love it.
good.
Yeah, I love it so much. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that everyone that goes into business has different levels of challenges, and it's sort of, it's challenging running a business, but I think it can also help us grow and push us in ways that we might never have thought we would grow ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And like learning how to communicate better
Mm.
and all those sort of things that go along with it.
And like so cool that, you both figured that out and then actually launched a complementary business helping other people do that. I think it's so wild. Like at the beginning, I'm sure you never thought that that was going to be a possibility.
Not at all. Like it wasn't even on the radar. Like
Mm.
he comes up with all these ideas there, and now he's in the property game now. It's funny, he's more the entrepreneur than I am. I just came up with the shaving the face pretty much. And yeah, so yeah, he's the ideas man. I'm
Uh,
the marketing girl.
I love it. I'm sure you're far more than that, but I love the modesty. Yeah, and so I wanted to ask as well around where you can actually buy at the moment. So do you do a combination of online sales in the big retailers, like wholesale? What's that kind of makeup look like?
Yeah, so Bondi blades you could pretty much buy in most pharmacies around Australia now.
Nice.
And if they haven't got it, they can order it from the wholesaler and have it there in the afternoon. If you order it in the morning, it's there in the afternoon, because we're in the biggest wholesaler in Australia called Symbion
Oh,
it's about 3,000 pharmacies attached to it.
oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, their warehouse, but predominantly like your Blooms, your Chempros, your Amcals, Terry Whites, those sort of places.
Yeah.
We're in Foodworks, like lots of online retailers as well. So it's very accessible across Australia, and we have our own online store as well, but we've sort of moved to more a wholesale business predominantly, especially with the international stuff. So online is not an area that we have focused on the last 12 months while we try to expand overseas, but
Mm.
next year we will go back to, I guess, focusing a bit of our time and marketing efforts on direct to customers with it from our online channel, because that's where you get the most margin in your product. Because when you're focusing on wholesale, while you're doing bigger volumes and numbers, the margin is less. So if we can go back to, I guess, spending a bit of time focusing on that direct to customer, that's just another revenue channel as well to focus back on.
Yeah, and that's really interesting as well. I think that's one thing that people can underestimate when they're in that initial scoping phase of figuring out how things. And I mean, you were obviously really smart at the beginning, going, "What's the best profit margin, like smaller MOQs?" Because if you're going to go down that wholesale path, you've really got to think about the fact that, oh my God, I'm only selling this for half the amount or somewhat
Yeah.
than I thought of.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're going in from direct to customer to retail, like it's a massive shift and change, and having to, you might have to wait 60, 90 days to get paid as well. There's a whole nother level of things when you go from just on, online e-commerce to being in a retail store, and then the retailers want marketing and ad spend as well. So there's just so many more things that you have to think about.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, we could talk all day, but I always love to wrap up these podcasts with one last piece of advice. So, reflecting on your time in business, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to another woman on her journey?
I think my best piece of advice is definitely, it's never a failure, it's always a lesson. I'm not sure who said that, but it's a quote that I really live by, because so many times you think, oh, this is this is not happening, but you're learning something from it. It's
Mm.
not, you haven't failed at something. It just, because it hasn't worked out, it means that you've learned something that you can put into another business, or, it's always a learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And, I think you've got to experiment and try new things, and the world will always change. So if you have that mindset that it's not a failure, it's a learning, that will hold you in really good stead for growing your business.
Absolutely.
I love it. Ali, you are the best. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for taking the time to chat with the Spark community and share your insights. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Danielle. It was lovely to meet you, and cheers.
Cheers.